Hi, so in the process of writing the script, I realize I'm not the only one commenting on this topic at this time. There are other videos out there that are really good. I think there might be an overlap in certain points, but I'm definitely not trying to rip anyone off or copy paste any of their ideas. So you probably saw the title and are thinking, this is 2022. Of course animation is respected. And I agree that we've come a long way. But in the midst of the Oscars 2022 discourse, I keep seeing this quote from the night. Animation is for kids to enjoy and adults to endure. While we can all agree that this is a baseless claim and downright offensive, considering one of the movies in the animated category this year was Flee, a documentary about the life of an Afghan refugee, it got me thinking that I don't believe we truly respect animation as a film medium. Before I get into the main points of this video, I just want to quickly explain what exactly I'll be focusing on. I won't be talking about animated series or TV series because there are far too many to make any general statements about. In terms of children's TV, I won't focus on it too much, mainly because cartoons are definitely a mixed bag. There are some amazing cartoons while others are just dumpster fires. Similarly, adult animation has its flaws, but I think there's a lot more respect for it now, especially because of BoJack Horseman. Another category that I won't go into for this video is what I'll call the artsy ones. Beautifully animated, mature storytelling, and complex characterization. These movies are often anime, but there are some exceptions. They're definitely masterpieces, and I don't think anyone in their right mind could watch any of these movies in their entirety and think, yeah, just a dumb kids movie. I'll be excluding movies like this from the main discussion because while they're amazing, I find it unfair to hold every animated movie up to the standard and dismiss them when they miss the mark. Animation shouldn't have to be Oscar-worthy to gain people's respect. Which brings us to the next category of films, animated movies for children. This is where the main focus of the video will be because when talking about animation deserving praise and respect, people often overlook movies aimed at children and focus on more of the artsy Oscar films, which is fine, but personally I think that we often use, oh, it's just for children, as an excuse for poor quality. This won't be the last time I mention something like this. I've posted videos ranking old cartoons and talking about animated musicals, and the movies or series that I praise the most are the ones that don't insult their audience. Yes, kids are silly, and they need something fun and interesting to watch, but they're not dumb. Exploring basic topics and using more accessible vocabulary is different from literally dumbing everything down and not putting any effort in. That's honestly insulting towards kids. They don't deserve less simply because they're children. Many of you don't know my exact age, but you probably think I'm not necessarily a child, and this is true. I'm a young adult, and I don't want to say my age because I already feel too old. You're probably wondering why I'm choosing to focus on children's animation when I don't necessarily have to watch it myself. It's not made for me, but I watch children's animation because I like to. Don't start psychoanalyzing me, linking this to some childhood trauma. It's not just me. Plenty of adults watch things for kids, and that's because, well, when it's really good, you don't need to be a kid to enjoy it. I like some of the older Disney movies not just because of the nostalgia, but because they're good. I hate when people say that adult humor is simply a sexual innuendo slipped in. It can also just be a layered joke that you might need to have more cognitive ability to understand, which makes revisiting childhood movies as an adult so great when you can finally get the jokes that had gone over your head as a child. The best example I can think of off the top of my head is Megamind, because I loved that movie when it came out. I was like 8 at the time. There I go, giving away my age. And then I watched it again 10 years later, and it was even funnier.
Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a magic kingdom that prospered through its commitment to two simple ideals, duty and devotion, the 2Ds.
In terms of the major animation studios like DreamWorks and Disney, they've kind of done away with 2D movies. This decision was mainly because 2D films take a while to produce and 3D has been bringing in more money. This is a tricky aspect of animation to debate about because on one hand, 2D animating puts a huge amount of pressure on animators, and it's very frustrating. But in a way, the effort and time taken to produce these movies left the creators' souls in the project. I didn't mean for that to sound so creepy. I just mean that watching Disney's old 2D movies, particularly from the Renaissance and onwards, you feel the heart and soul put into the project. It doesn't feel like one big marketing scheme. This isn't to say that 3D movies don't have this kind of effort put in or that they're all soulless cash grabs. It's just to say that if you did want to make a soulless cash grab, you'd go with 3D animation, which has been happening. And I think when Disney entered the 3D game is when 3D movies took a turn. Watching 3D movies from Blue Sky, DreamWorks, and Mattel before 2010, while they really could have used some work, they felt genuine. Post-2010, or rather post-Tangled, Disney raised the bar for what a 3D movie could look like. Tangled was an amazing movie outside of its looks, but Disney really did get a lot of praise for how good the animation was, as they should. But I think in the midst of trying to make animation look better, the storytelling and writing of these movies didn't seem to get the same attention. So especially in recent years, the animation is amazing, it's colorful, it looks good, but the rest of the film isn't. I really wish that studios could balance 2D and 3D projects. Maybe going back to basics for a bit could help these studios understand what made all the older 2D movies so beloved, and try to bring those elements into their 3D movies. Post 2010, there have been some amazing 3D movies, but as you've progressed, it's becoming less about good storytelling and more about building franchises and selling merchandise. Despicable Me was a genuinely good movie for both adults and children to enjoy, but then because of how much audiences liked the Minions, Illumination decided to really put an emphasis on them in future projects. And oh my lord, do we now hate Minions. We got Minion merchandise, Minion Facebook posts, more Minions in the second and third movie, and 2 Minion movies, and I can't. They've taken over and ruined everything. And this need to promote Minions has essentially overshadowed the film's plot. It's like, okay, imagine you make a well-balanced meal. Some vegetables, grilled fish, fried potatoes, and a side of lime avocado sauce. You serve it to someone and they say, wow, this is great avocado sauce. It really ties the meal together. So the next time you invite them over, you serve a bowl of avocado sauce and force them to eat it. That's what this is like. I think it's when we began franchising that we fell off the wagon, milking out a series of every original idea and trope to make more money. I think franchising isn't bad when you have an end in sight. For example, How to Train Your Dragon was originally supposed to be a standalone film, but when they decided to make a sequel, the director wanted it to be a trilogy. They knew that there would only be 3 movies and they worked around that limit. Ice Age, on the other hand, was a good movie. And then we got a second, and a third, and I was like, okay, that's alright. Then we got a fourth, and I was like, okay. Then a fifth, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Why is Ice Age still a thing? The Ice Age didn't even last this long. And then a 6th movie was announced, but Disney shut that down. We were all getting tired of all the movies, but we kept watching. Also, while we're on the topic of Ice Age, I want to compare Scrat and the Minions because I think it's a similar topic. They were both minor characters in their film used as comic relief, and then they got too much attention as their respective franchises progressed. And what irritates me about Scrat is that he's not really a character. We got very little of him, and that was enough. We didn't get tired of him because he couldn't carry the film. But now he's getting his own series, which I mean, Disney. Let dead men rest. Blue Sky's over, you killed them. Is this not literal grave robbing? Anyway, and yes, technically this all isn't an issue to do with 3D animation. I'm bringing it up in this section because with a 2D movie, with all that time and effort, studios wouldn't often waste time creating some generic repetitive franchise. And I think these franchises are ruining children's animation because this is what we see it as. We think it's dumb. We know it's just there to make money and we let our kids watch it because why not? It's for kids, why should we care? But like I said in the beginning, children don't deserve less because they're children. They're just as entitled to good art as adults are, and they used to get that. So standards are dropping now, and we're just accepting that that's the way it is, but it isn't fair. 3D animation is by no means bad, but in a couple of years, many of the 2D movies will still hold up when more modern 3D movies will be irrelevant and forgotten. Before I close up this section, I want to talk about Amazon's Diabolical because I really enjoyed it, and I have no idea where else to talk about it. Like, I'm not going to make a whole video about it. I want to take time to appreciate their use of not only 2D animation, but also different art styles within 2D animation that complement the stories. I like how they don't just use animation for the sake of using animation, but rather tell a story in a way that only that animation could. The best example of this is the episode John and Sunhee. The way the fight scene was animated and the blend of colors at the end was so moving, and 3D animation, or even live action, couldn't have done that with the same impact.
Father, when can I leave to be on my own? I've got the whole world to see.
Right, so I could start this section off with the whole Robbie Williams and Aladdin thing, but I feel like we've all heard it by now. I just think that voice acting is often overlooked as a talent. Like for animated films, there's so much in the vocal acting that makes the writing work. Voice acting isn't simply showing up and reading a line, and it's different from regular acting because no one's seeing your facial expressions. You need to convey a character's personality and emotions through your voice alone. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging someone for their vocal performance in a role. And I won't lie, I'm drawn to movies and series that have Patrick Warburton. But this isn't just because of how famous he is, it's because of how he brings certain characters to life. He's one of those voice actors like Kristen Schaal or H. John Benjamin, who have a very recognizable voice, but he can still create a distinction between characters. His voice is distinct, but he manages to bring so many different characters to life. He managed to create the lovable himbo we know as Kronk and the grumpy wolf reporter from Hoodwinked. And I don't get the two mixed up. That's what good voice acting is. Warburton is a proper voice actor, and that's where he got his recognition from. I enjoy watching films with my favorite actors, but having them in animated movies doesn't draw me to those films if they're not really voice actors. Sometimes celebrity voice acting can shock me. Like going into the Croods and realizing how talented the cast was despite being A-list celebrities and not professional voice actors. And that's because, while yes, they're famous, they didn't phone in their performances. They genuinely did give it their all and put effort into it. And The Croods was another genuine movie full of good writing and proper storytelling. This just goes to show that celebrity voice acting doesn't need to be terrible. Actors who have never tried voice acting before can come into a role and do their best and it can work. Other times you can't attach a name to a character's voice. I'm only using this example because as I write this part of the script, I'm listening to the soundtrack of the Barbie movies. Why? Because it's one of those days, and also I have culture. Anyway, Preminger's voice actor, who is he? What's his name? I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that whatever he was paid for his work on the film, it was not enough.
Silencio! No! I won't let go! This peasant's son won't turn and run because some reckless royal chose another bow! It's a temporary setback. It's a momentary loss.
Voice acting shouldn't be about being recognized or being famous. It's about putting your all into a role, knowing that there's a good chance the people you gave this character to might not know who you are afterwards. I think this was accepted pre-Robin Williams. It wasn't by any means a drastic change, like after Aladdin there was always a celebrity voicing a cartoon character in a movie. But before Aladdin, the voice actors of films like The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast weren't exactly well known before or after their films, and that's fine. Voice acting is a faceless profession. You might know some names because of research you've done or videos you've watched, but this was the status quo. You need the talent to get the role and not the recognition. With celebrity voice acting, the norm is shifting. More often than not, animated films will need at least one major celebrity to use for marketing. This isn't to say that live-action movies aren't doing the same, using A-list celebrities and internet personalities in their movies to promote their film. And this is the case sometimes, but it's just more so in animation. And I think society's lack of respect for this medium, and let's face it, the studio's lack of respect for this medium, causes insecurity that no one will take this film seriously, causing them to throw in a celebrity or two to secure the celebrity's fans. There's been a shift in focus on the actual substance of the film and the marketing for the film, letting audiences gravitate towards this and not caring that much about how it's received. It's by no means asking for too much to want these studios to uphold the standards of the classic 2D movies. While yes, a lot of its strengths are from the art style, there were more elements in those films that made them so memorable. And instead of figuring out what these elements are, and at the very least attempting to include them in their modern movies, Disney decides to make live-action remakes of their beloved movies.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
What can be said about live-action remakes that hasn't already been said? I think these movies are a perfect metaphor for the world, or society, I guess. Gosh, look at me, we live in a society, right? But what I mean is that they're not doing poorly, but they're not being received well. Ironically enough, the live-action Lion King is the highest-grossing animated movie, but it's so difficult to find actual good reviews of these movies. For the most part, they're quite hated. I personally didn't hate the first incarnation of these movies, Alice in Wonderland, Maleficent, and Cinderella 2015, because they weren't really remakes. They were more a reimagining. The story of Cinderella isn't owned by Disney necessarily, and Cinderella movies are constantly getting different reincarnations. They're basically their own genre now. And Cinderella 2015 isn't a shot-for-shot remake of the original. It took focus away from the mice and their cartoonish antics and spent more time developing the prince's relationship with Ella. Maleficent is different from Sleeping Beauty in its tone, story, and perspective. And say what you want about Alice in Wonderland 2010, but it definitely did try to stand on its own, only making references to the original movie instead of solely relying on it. But Jungle Book was a turning point for me. It had the overly marketed celebrity voice acting. To this day, I can't tell you the name of the only physical actor in the film, but I know that Scarlett Johansson voices Kaa, even though she only had like 3 lines in the movie. But again, Jungle Book was similar to Alice in Wonderland in that the story wasn't very focused, leaving room for adaptation. It's when they came after Renaissance movies that the greed took over, and it's still taking over no matter how bad the reviews are. And maybe this is on us as well. We always want to say, look, it's not going to be better, it's a waste of time, and yet we still watch it. So while boycotting these films could hopefully maybe stop their production, it's a little pointless because it wouldn't work. We're going to watch the movies, and Disney knows this. So this is a video about animation. Why am I going on a rant about live action? Well, it's because I think live action remake's existence is a slap in the face to animation as a visual medium. We adapt books into movies, going from literary medium to a visual medium, and then we will adapt the story into a stage musical, now entering a theatrical medium. Do you see how these adaptations are going from one medium to another? Okay, what's a live action film? A visual medium, yes. What's an animated film? A visual medium. It's the same medium. Each form of art has its weaknesses and its strengths. For greater emotional dramas, live action creates a grounded sense and more complex facial expressions. Sure, this could be attempted in animation, but it wouldn't always have the right impact. Live action used in sitcom or comedy genres works especially well when the actions in physical comedy are at play. Like, I struggle to imagine shows like How I Met Your Mother, New Girl, and Parks and Recreation as animated series without losing so much of what makes them good. Animation is a perfect genre for imaginative ideas and essentially translating a creator's imagination onto the screen. I've watched so many videos about the strengths of animation. One of the occurring ideas is that if you have an image in your head, animation will let you show it to an audience, whereas live action has its limitations. Directors have gotten frustrated with working with effects because it can't quite capture the image that they see in their mind. People said Disney is churning out these live actions because they now have the technology to make it happen. Here's the thing though, it doesn't matter how far we developed our technology. We're trying to replicate something that can't be replicated. And that's part of the problem. Why do you feel that something needs to be live action to make it epic or better? Yes, they have action choreographers training the actors, but what about the animators who drew all these smooth and organized fight scenes? We're so quick to compliment and praise these computers and technology creating these realistic monsters and animals, but what about the time that went into creating these designs in the first place? Animating a lion isn't as easy as it may sound. Yes, they had the little cub that they used as a reference, but they still needed to draw the lions in a manner that allowed them to show human expression. Newsflash, lions don't smile or roll their eyes or frown, but the animators made it work here because now we, as the audience, can empathize with these characters. They're drawn with more humanistic features, and that's how we can understand their emotions and behavior. And let's be honest, they knew what they were doing.
Alright, who is the hottest animated dad? Mufasa.
That is a lion.
Why they draw him like that?
This can't be attempted in live action, and we all saw it. Okay, not all. I didn't watch Lion King 2019, I drew the line after Aladdin. But the point is, yes, they created photorealistic lions, but no one asked for it. It doesn't work. Look, is he sad that his dad is dead or glad that he can now be king? I can't tell you. And here's another thing. Animation is able to get away with creating cute and appealing character designs because since it's animated, they're allowed to take liberties with human, animal, and even plant anatomy. Does the word anatomy extend to plants? I don't care, you know what I mean. Like, look at how disproportional anime girls' faces are, but it works. Trying to translate this into live action is difficult because, well, she'd have to look like a normal girl and it would just never be right. I guess Alita Battle Angel, credit where credit is due. They tried, they really did try, but it still wasn't it. It wasn't nightmare-inducing by any means, but it's like, if you want to look like an anime, just make an anime. It's like your solution is there, it exists. If you feel like Alita Battle Angel is a great piece of art and should be appreciated, then go ahead, believe that, talk about it, write about it. But why feel the need to attempt and replicate it in live action? That's kind of an insult. The way we develop our technology, we're only getting gradually closer and closer to things animation has already achieved. And here's the thing, if we have this newfound technology, why are we using it on something that already exists? Why can't we leave these movies alone and make new ones? I understand that taking a risk and creating something new could backfire and cost the studio money, but at this point, it might get them some respect. Remember Avatar: The Blue People? Yeah, if I say Avatar, I'm probably talking about this, so I have to specify The Blue People. I haven't watched it, but they used this technology to make a film with an original story, and it was a hit. Sometimes you just have to take that risk. Losing money can be difficult, but oh my goodness, at this point, I think many of these studios can afford it, especially Disney. Live actions are essentially implying that these movies are inferior because they're animated, and are therefore trying to fix these movies, but it's not working. Everyone knows it's not working, but these movies keep coming out despite everything. We can keep saying we're watching these movies for nostalgic purposes, but I think deep down we don't appreciate animation as a medium enough to confidently believe that live action will always be a step down. We always want to find out if there's a chance it could be better. Which brings me to my next point.
It's a cautionary tale.
I know I said I wasn't going to talk about series, but I'm making an exception here. Let's talk about Avatar. The Last Airbender movie should have 100% been a cautionary tale, and I believe that it was for a while, but just not long enough. For those of you who somehow don't know, The Last Airbender is a live-action remake of the greatest series of all time, Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of the first live-action remakes of an animated story. There was huge anticipation around it, but when it came out, it was a flop. Some members of the fandom don't even acknowledge this movie's existence. Right now, as they're watching, all they're hearing is silence because I'm talking about something that doesn't exist. But what I found interesting is how this movie's failure essentially boosted Avatar up. To most, they appreciated the series more. There was a lot wrong with the movie, but one of the major downfalls was trying to go from animated to live action. The movie failed miserably. Worst reviews ever. This was in 2010, mind you. And years later, Disney said, No. This won't apply to us. These scenarios aren't by any means a one-to-one comparison, but the warning was there. This was a cautionary tale. We saw what happened when we tried to replicate something that can't be replicated. And this was one of those things that had no nuance whatsoever. Everyone was like, no, this was atrocious. So you'd imagine my surprise when Netflix announced that they would be producing a live-action remake of Avatar.
Jojo! Have you learned nothing?
It's gonna fail. But wait, the original creators are working on it. That's beside the point. Wait, the creators have worked out of the project. And so it begins. But Netflix just teased the cast list. Look at all this representation. That's fine. It's still gonna fail. Have you really learned nothing? Isn't it a little prideful to think that this negative impact of live actions won't come for you? To think that maybe you'll do things differently? Like you'll be the exception to the rule? When you're in a live action format, things need to be realistic. In the show, Aang is really light on his feet. Whenever he lands using airbending, it feels really natural. In live action, trying this would make someone look like they're wearing a wire or would need to use an oddly placed slow motion. Even other fights in the show have this grace to them. This isn't just Avatar, but many other animated fight sequences. There's often this delay before a character lands that works so well that would be near impossible to pull off in live action. Live action can have its fight scenes, but they need to be choreographed in a very different way compared to animation. And I really am yet to see pyrokinesis being used well in live action. Anytime I've seen a character with fire powers, it does not look good. It honestly makes me chuckle a bit when Netflix is constantly throwing the Asian cast members at us like whitewashing was the only issue from the live action. Oh, wow, yeah, that was horrible. So do you see why you shouldn't make the live action? No, they went wrong because the cast was predominantly white. We're gonna have an all-Asian cast. I get the importance of representation, I'm all here for it, but especially in 2022, it's becoming increasingly difficult to keep using that line. We've definitely made strides in the portrayal of Asians in media, from Crazy Rich Asians to Turning Red. We're doing away with dated stereotypes and gimmicks like fetishizing Asian women and casting nerdy and attractive Asian men. We've really moved past it. So representation isn't a good enough excuse to create something that will be terrible instead of creating something good with actual substance with an all-Asian cast. That's another thing. Normalizing something means that we don't constantly call out when we see it. Diversity in media should be normalized and not marketed. You shouldn't sprain your wrist from patting yourself on the back because you have an all-Asian cast. Turning Red has an Asian director who used her own life and experiences to influence the film, but the movie isn't good because of this influence. And it didn't use it in its marketing because it's becoming more and more normal not to only have white leads in films. So yeah, thanks for doing the bare minimum by casting Asian people in Asian-coded roles, Netflix. But why can't you just give us something beautiful, something memorable? Why can't you market a good story to your audience instead of patting yourself in the back for casting Asians in your series? So many more Asian creators are making works of art, products that have soul in them without the diversity elements feeling forced. It doesn't feel like Netflix even cares about proper good representation. They just want to feel trendy and up to date, just like other soulless corporations. I want to eat my words. I want to post a video when the series finally drops saying that I was wrong, but I know that I won't. Live actions are setting themselves up for failure. They're literally comparing themselves to this other creation which is superior in every way. And I think we keep watching them because deep down we think that they might be better, that they might give us something of worth, but every time all it does is remind us of something better that it's not living up to, and it will never live up to it. And this is another reason why I'm bringing up Avatar. We seem to think that something being live action would immediately make it more epic, cooler, or better. All the sophisticated adjectives have left me. And maybe that's why we're giving Netflix the benefit of the doubt. letting them create the live action and holding out our judgment until the end. But answer me this, what's more epic than this? Or this. Or this.
Come on out, little boy. You're about to be... Even with all the power in the world, you are still weak.
Please take a moment to think about how all this will be downgraded to a live-action setting. I feel like at this rate we've just fallen into a cycle. Thinking maybe this time it'll be good, but it gets worse each time.
Ow! What was that? Maybe this time.
So again, why? Why do we keep anticipating these remakes? Does it really all come down to nostalgia and curiosity? I think that we just don't understand the root of the issue. These movies exist, these stories exist, and they worked because of the sum of their parts. It was to do with voice acting, the directing, the animation, and the story. Delivering the exact same story but changing these parts is not going to work. The proof is here, and here, and here, and definitely here. I've heard people say that movies like Atlantis and Treasure Planet should get remakes because no one watched them, and they have a good story. Here's the thing, okay? If you haven't seen this movie, if your kids haven't seen this movie, just watch it. Why are we acting like the only place to watch a movie is the cinema? Why are we acting like DVDs don't exist? Why are we acting like Disney doesn't have its own streaming service where you can watch their old movies? And you know what? I'm just gonna say it. Why are we acting like shady online streaming sites don't exist? Don't come at me, don't judge me. I live in Africa. Certain things aren't available to me. Like fresh water. Nice. One last thing on this topic. I was scrolling on TikTok and someone posted the transformation thing from Brother Bear. And in the comments someone posted, they need to make a live action of Brother Bear. I have to take this as a joke, because if not, I will literally explode into a ball of rage. So let me just say this. If Disney ever announces a live action Brother Bear, whether it's in 2030 or 2070, I will take them down. Don't roll your eyes, I'm not joking. Look how long this script is. I had the time to put a plan together to shut down Disney, I swear. Let them cross the line. I was ready after Raya, but Encounter gave me hope for Disney. Let them slip up, and I will end their career.
Now let's see who's really behind these bandages.
It's corporate greed. Yep, why are we shocked? This is the root of the problem, undoubtedly. The choice to go from 2D to 3D was overall impacted by the length of time taken to produce a 2D movie and how much money it makes, versus the length of time taken to produce a 3D movie and how much money it makes. Celebrity voice casting is used as a marketing strategy to get more people invested in a movie, and I get it. I get that these studios need to make money. Wanting to make money isn't inherently evil, but this is clearly greed. Yes, major studios have made a lot more money recently, but what can be said about the quality of their animated children's movies today? Studios are putting an emphasis on profits and making something flashy and attention-grabbing, and they're forgetting to add quality and substance to these films. They don't take risks and tell new stories because if it backfires, they'll lose money, so they rely on dated generic tropes and stories and stock characters, and we're all getting tired of it. This is all we see children's animation as these days. Generic, lazy. That's where the comment from the Oscars reflected society's perceptions of animation, especially children's animation today. We don't respect it anymore. We recognize that the standards have dropped, and we're not demanding the standards that we and our children deserve. So that's it. I really thought by the time I'd reached the end, I could easily say, yep, this is the problem. This is what we need to stop doing. This is what we need to start doing. But that's not really the case. I know I haven't really added that much new stuff to this debate, but hopefully you liked this video. Maybe someone will watch this and hear one of my points and be like, right there, she had a point, but she didn't really bring it home. Let me conclude that for you. And they'll come up with something really helpful on what to do. I'm not the best at concluding things. For my English essay and my final exams, for the conclusion, I wrote, there you have it. Maybe that's why I didn't get an A. But before I go, I just want to end this on a more positive note because there's been a lot of negativity in this video. Movies that are cheap cash grabs tend to get the spotlight, while genuine heartwarming films that don't follow generic formulae and lazy marketing go to the radar. While I was ready to give up on Disney, Encanto and Turning Red gave me hope for the future of children's animation. They were a breath of fresh air and didn't insult their audiences, both younger and older. I'm glad they gave us something new and something that felt like there was a lot of heart and soul put into the project and not just obligation. Its success could hopefully make Disney understand that they can create good art and have it make money. We all know Encanto, but come on, I've mentioned Turning Red like 5 times now. If you haven't watched it already, you should. So yeah, I'm just going to list a bunch of other animated films, both 2D and 3D for children, that don't get enough love. Some people might talk about them briefly as they rank DreamWorks movies or Disney movies and rip them to shreds like a critic. This list isn't from the perspective of a critic, it's from the perspective of some random girl in Kenya who finds them really enjoyable. You should watch these if you haven't already and revisit them if you have. A more recent film that was surprisingly funny. Was it extremely absurd? Yes, but I think the good definitely outweighs the bad here.
Orphan Tulip?
Junior? Oh, Tulip is just fine. Orphan hurts my heart.
That's a quail, an emu, there's a chicken, they cannot fly.
She's helping us achieve our dream.
A botched marketing campaign overshadowed a heartwarming and surprisingly progressive film. This one is getting a little more recognition mainly because I think people are sending for Jack Frost, but anyway. This movie wasn't particularly my favorite, but it's still good. Again, not my favorite, but I can acknowledge that while the movie had some cliches, it told the story in an interesting manner and included some really likable characters. Obviously this is Disney, so it's a lot more well known than other movies on the list, but I don't know. I just thought this deserved a mention. I love the studio's making a name for itself in the animation industry. I only want to mention the first Neja. There are other movies from the studio like Whitesnake, Greensnake, and Neja Reborn, but I think my personal favorite is this one. I have a theory that the movie was incomplete and released by accident because look at it. But if you can get past the animation, which I did, then this is one of the funniest animated films of our time, and as mentioned before, has some great voice acting. I'm pretty sure there are many memes from this movie floating around, but I wouldn't say that the movie is very well known. I don't think that there were any movies like this at the time, so they really did take a risk. I think it's the only animated movie mockumentary I've watched, and I love it. You've got your goofy kids jokes in there, but there are also a bunch of other jokes that took me a while to actually understand. The first one was so much better, we all know that by now. I think we've just forgotten that there's a second movie, or maybe just didn't know. It's more like a compilation of stories into one, but hey, they're not bad stories. A little more love for it now, but there still could be more. I honestly prefer this movie to many of the Renaissance movies. I know there are a couple of films that are good in terms of voice acting, plot, and comedy, but additionally, they have some amazing songs. One of DreamWorks' more underrated films. I love to watch this movie every once in a while, and I listen to the soundtrack on a regular basis.
Looks grim right now, but pretty soon we'll be laughing about it. Ooh, and it's alright, yeah it is, I swear you'll see. It's not really, yeah, it's alright.
You know the bad reviews. This movie was not perfect, but it was beautiful, funny, and heartwarming, and oh my goodness do I love these songs.
What if the rain keeps falling? What if the sky stays gray? What if the winds keep squalling? I'm a tiny half an acre of paradise, darling, I swear, once you've been there ain't a view beneath the blue that could ever compare.
This was my favorite movie growing up. I revisited it when I was in grade 9 and I just started crying. I think this is a movie that I need to watch once a year for reasons I can't explain because I don't actually understand. And best believe I sing along each time.
It's a new world. It's a new start. It's alive with the beating of a young heart. Then from on high, somewhere in the distance, there's a voice that calls. Remember who you are. Ain't gonna take me down no way. Yeah. Don't touch a thing till you know what's inside it. Don't push me, I'll fight it. You can't take me, I'm free. You fly like an eagle. Yeah, you are the one. I've seen every sunset, and with all that I've learned.
Again, I feel like we're starting to appreciate this movie a lot more, but I think it doesn't get the recognition it deserves. I will play out a couple of songs from the movie because, obviously, but outside of these songs, people who call this a Romeo and Juliet remake aren't really doing the film justice. Mainly because Romeo and Juliet wasn't even the first story with the whole feuding families trope. But also, aside from the feuding families thing, that's kind of where the similarities end. Like this movie has a very minor enemies to lovers arc at the beginning, and Koba and Kiara are technically childhood friends, kind of. But anyway, I can safely say that I've watched Lion King 2 more than the original Lion King.
There's no mountain too great. Hear the words and have faith. Oh, have faith. Even those who are gone are with us as we go on. Your journey has only begun. Joy of vengeance!
Testify!
I can hear the cheering.
Kovu, what a guy.
Payback time is nearing, and then our flag will fly.
Barbie movies, and I don't just mean The Princess and the Pauper. Yes, they were made to sell dolls and merchandise, and the animation could be better, but like I said, stellar voice acting, intriguing stories, and damn they didn't need to go that hard with these songs.
There is not one hair of you that I would rearrange. Sun goes down, we are here together. Always fireflies glow like a thousand stars. I need to know these answers. I need to find my way. Seems like tomorrow.
I'm mainly talking about the first movie, even though the sequel does deserve your attention. I will not allow Phil Collins slander on my channel. The music in both these films is amazing. I think that the story in the first movie was shockingly mature for a kid's film, but I wouldn't call it inappropriate for children. The realization that Kenai has as Coda is telling his story about his mom still gives me chills. And other than that, it's a story about the effects of grief and confronting the consequences of your actions. And again, these songs, guys, come on. The transformation song is amazing, but you're sleeping on the others.
Reaching out to the skies up above. Great spirits of all who live things for. Take our hands and lead us. Fill our hearts and souls with all you know.
Tell everybody I'm on my way, and I'm loving every step I take. Then I see family, I see the way we used to be. Come on, welcome to our family time. Welcome to our brotherly time.
lastly, the other movies that I haven't listed here that you can tell me about in the comments below. I want to mention Box Trolls and The Swan Princess. I haven't watched either, but I've seen clips that make their films look really nice, so I'd love to give them a try. There's a lot more animation out there. I suggest you look at a channel like Cellspecs if you haven't already. Her videos are genuinely interesting, and she has a lot more to say than I do. I find so many new movies to watch because of her videos, and I really love that she criticizes movies but doesn't really make them seem like they're unwatchable because of their flaws. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I realized my thoughts were kind of all over the place, and oh yeah, my outro song's back. I went back to my old videos and I was like, why don't I use this anymore? Like I said, I really want to know your thoughts on this whole situation. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm exaggerating? Are you looking forward to any new live action movies? Oh, and if you watched my previous video on Manifest, I mentioned I was working on a long project. This isn't it. I should have made that clearer. If you're still listening to me babble, thank you so much. As always, I'm just a squirrel, and thank you for watching.